As a first-round pick, Byron Murphy II disappointed, at least statistically, during his rookie season. So far, sophomore season has been much better, including a dominant performance in Jacksonville. We're going to be diving into the latest rising star for the Seahawks and how he's having an impact on Mike Macdonald's defense coming up next year on our Tuesday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glad to be joined, as always, by my trusty co-host in crime, Rob Rang. And a special thanks to all the 12s who are listening in, whether you are in nearby Bothell, Washington, or up in Wasilla, Alaska. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate our everydayers. Seahawks going to be gearing up for a Monday night matchup soon against the Houston Texans before going into their bye. We'll take a first look at the Texans today. What's new? And there's a lot that's new, both additions and departures. Injuries also included in that metric as well. A lot of changes for Houston as they try to get back to the postseason. And we're going to have our Tell the Truth Tuesday tidbits of wisdom coming your way. Offense, defense, special teams, maybe even a little bit of front office talk as well. All of it brought your way by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Now for your lead story here on our Tuesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Before the start of this season, there was a lot of discussion among Seahawk fans. We read your comments, 12s, that were disappointed in regard to what Byron Murphy II did in his rookie campaign. At least statistically, half a sack, 1 quarterback hit, 2 tackles for loss. Those are not the numbers you expect from a player picked in the top 20 selections. A lot of fans were disappointed. You and I tried to counter that with some advanced metrics that talked about how important Byron Murphy II was, even if it didn't translate to those traditional stats that fans look at, like sacks and quarterback hits, tackles for loss. And we were both really optimistic that a breakout sophomore season could be on tap for the former Texas standout. I don't know that I thought he was going to be this good, though, in the first 6 games. And I think you can make a really strong argument, Rob, that Murphy is one of the 3 most improved players from that first-round class in the 2024 draft. He's already got 4.5 sacks. He had 2 of them in Jacksonville on Sunday. He's consistently been getting to the quarterback, almost double-digit quarterback hits, and he had 1 last year. That was the one play that he had a partial sack. That was the only time he hit a QB all season. He's got 9 of them already. Mike Macdonald has been talking this kid up since the beginning of his rookie season. Now he's playing the I told you so card in press conferences now that the numbers are starting to stack up. And as we talked about, this is one of the players that could really elevate this defense to a whole other level. And now we're seeing what he's capable of, breaking through double teams he did Sunday. If he's doing that, it just makes it that much harder with all the other pieces they have on that defensive line.
Yeah, no question about it, Corbin. I mean, he is one of the real breakout stars for the Seahawks this season. The numbers speak for themselves. Those of you who can watch on YouTube, you can see those numbers. And those of you who are listening, and thank you to all of you, as Corbin often says, I'll read off some of the numbers. Now, last year, he had a total of 36 tackles. This is all season long, 36 tackles. He already has 23 over the first 6 games this year. As Corbin mentioned, only half of a sack last year, 4.5 sacks so far this season, 2 tackles for loss all of last year, 3 tackles for loss so far this season. Already has more quarterback pressures this year, 22 than the 21 he had a year ago, 9 quarterback hits, only the 1 a year ago, 20 quarterback hurries a year ago, already 14 quarterback hurries, and pass rush win rate, one of those statistics that Pro Football Focus has popularized here, basically just kind of adding a statistical note to how often are you beating your opponent, the blocker assigned to you. He is winning on 15% of his pass rush attempts, only 10% last year. I think that last number there, Corbin, is actually one that I think does a really nice job of just kind of proving just how much better that he is in just a season. You think about the great pass rusher, defensive tackles in all of the NFL. Usually they are somewhere in that 15 to 20% percentile. Now, if you're a superstar like an Aaron Donald, they might be even higher than that. But that's the exciting thing about Byron Murphy II. He's only in year 2. We are only seeing him just kind of scratch the surface of his potential. We've always seen the power. We've always seen that initial burst. Now he is pairing that physical gifts with some technique as well. And the fact that Seattle is as loaded as they are throughout the rest of the defensive line, these numbers should explode throughout the rest of the season.
What really got me excited watching the All-22 on the game from Sunday, going back, and I watched it 4 times like I always do, 4 run-throughs, and I was blown away by the damage that Byron Murphy II was doing when Seattle was running tackle end exchange stunts, which typically what you're asking the tackle to do, you're asking them to get upfield and try to get 2 blockers on them so that you can have a looper come back from the outside behind and the blocking is there and that looper can have a direct path to the quarterback. But there were a few times that he dominated the guards so bad getting upfield with either hand swipe moves or rip moves that he had both blockers, but he got past both of them. So the edge guy was crashing with nobody to block him, but Murphy also had a free rein to the quarterback as well. One of his partial sacks came on a play like that. Jacksonville was actively in the second half in particular, they were trying to double team him. There were several occasions where they decided, you know what, we're going to take our one-on-ones to the edge guys. We are not letting Byron Murphy II beat us, and he was still beating them. He was still whipping them. His pass rush win rate in this game, by my metrics, was north of 30%. It was an insane game. And the fact of the matter is, a good chunk of those were coming against multiple blockers, and he was just finding ways to wreck the game. And we also saw those athletic traits. The rundown of Trevor Lawrence on the first play from scrimmage was even more impressive watching it in the All-22 and seeing how much room that a 300-pound defensive tackle made up to trip Trevor Lawrence up a couple yards in the backfield when he was trying to scramble. And he was sprinting, ended up catching him, tripping him up. You don't see 300-pound defensive tackles doing that. So he was doing it all. He was busting double teams. He was dominating in the twist stunt game, whether it was helping teammates or finding ways to make plays himself. He was getting tackles in the run game, short yardage. He was doing it all. And to me, Jackson Smith-Njigba was incredible, but I think Byron Murphy II was the best player on the field on Sunday for the entire game. Jacksonville just had no answer for him. They could not block him. If Byron Murphy II is playing like, and by the way, when you have him and DeMarcus Lawrence on the same side and you run stunts, that is proving to be almost unblockable with those two guys. The chemistry that they are building, it has been a ton of fun to watch, and he is still such a young player, and he's still figuring things out. But the key is you're seeing a lot more confidence when it comes to finishing plays, which was kind of a struggle his last year at Texas, too. That was one of the negatives. Can he finish? Now we're seeing him put it all together, and he's finishing plays. It feels like he is just scratching the surface of how good he can be, which when you watch Sunday, that makes you a little bit freaked out if you're another team that has to deal with this kid.
Oh, no question. I mean, that's the thing. I do want to see the consistency. And we've seen a much more consistently dominant player so far this second season in the NFL. And again, that's what's so exciting is we're talking about a player who has played, 22 games, in the NFL. So, again, he is a player that his best football is still very much ahead of him. That said, I did think that the Jacksonville Jaguars interior of their offensive line was going to be an issue for them, as we talked about in the pregame in our Wednesday matchups, that they had lost their starting center. They had Jonah Monheim, a former left tackle for USC, was coming in and playing that center spot. Byron Murphy II, of course, is kind of built like a bowling ball. I mean, he's that 6'1", 300-pounder. He's going to win some leverage battles. And Monheim at center was 6'5". And there was another actually former USC Trojan at the right guard position throughout much of that game, Chuma Edoga, another guy who is kind of a little bit taller frame, plays a little bit too high. I thought that this was a kind of an advantageous matchup for Byron Murphy to kind of take full advantage of. But to me, one of the things that anybody who watched the game knows this, but still, when you think about it, it's that much more impressive. Again, this was an away game. And obviously, Seattle's been playing really good football on the road, but still, you didn't have the advantage of the home crowd. You didn't have the advantage of kind of knowing, getting that first jump because of the crowd noise and the offensive line not having the snap count advantage. And yet he still was that terrific. So again, I think that it's critical. If he's going to get the Pro Bowl kind of recognition that these numbers suggest that he could, then he's going to have to be consistent. I'm fascinated to see if he's able to build upon this performance Monday night on that national stage.
When we come back, it's time for Tell the Truth Tuesday. Words of wisdom. Rob and I are going to be dishing out some takes from the first 6 weeks, as well as some closing comments coming out of Sunday's win against the Jags. That'll be coming your way here on our Tuesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, you might as well get something for it. That's where Built comes in. Built is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards you can actually use. When you pay rent through Built, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But Built isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. I love that with Built, your rent finally works for you. You're earning points every month on something you already have to pay. Whether I'm grabbing food at my local restaurant or heading to the gym, I'm still earning rewards. Built has made everyday life feel more rewarding, from your neighborhood to your travel plans. Turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedinNFL. That's JOINBILT.com/lockedinNFL to make sure you use that link so that they know we sent you. What do you get when you have a bald eagle standing on top of a silverback gorilla riding a T-Rex? That's what you call pure confidence. If you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiet Go Long. That's exactly where Rougiet's Go Longs come in. This isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula so you can get hard and go the distance. The process is simple. Connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online, and if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. If prescribed, your treatment ships right to your door. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to RUGIET.com and use the promo code LOCKEDINNFL for 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET.com. Promo code LOCKEDINNFL. Make sure to use our code so they know we sent you. Welcome back to the Tuesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. It's your host, Corbin Smith. He's Rob Rang. A special thanks to each and every one of the 12s listening in. And thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate the support from all of our everydayers. The Seahawks improving to 4-2 with a 20-12 win over Jacksonville on Sunday. So they will be moving their attention to Monday Night Football against the Houston Texans coming up next week. But before we get to that point, as we do every Tuesday, it's time for some Tell the Truth Tuesday words of wisdom. It could be about the entire season. It could be about something in the future. It could be about the game on Sunday. And Rob, I know that your first one, looking at Seattle's run game, there's a little bit of the entire season in scope, but also coming out of this game against Jacksonville, some pointers from this particular game as well.
Yeah, I want to put the crosshairs, so to speak, on Charles Cross, Seattle star left tackle, who, I think that he has a reputation for being one of the elite pass blockers in the NFL. And it's well-deserved. He's only allowed 1 sack so far this season. He did have 2 pressures allowed versus the Jaguars. But I also think that the reason why he allowed a couple of pressures in passing is also one of the reasons why Seattle struggled to run the football as effectively against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And that's just the girth, the size of the Jaguar defenders. Those 2 pressures allowed were against Eric Armstead and Mason Smith. Armstead is 6'6", 290 pounds. Mason Smith is 6'5", 300 pounds. These are not your traditional edge rushing, 6'4", 290 250-pound speedsters. And yet Charles Cross, when you watch the tape, the all-22, you can see that he did a terrific job of actually sealing off these big guys, getting some push at the line of scrimmage, not just using his athletic ability, but also using his length and his underrated power. He did a good job of getting low and playing with some leverage, creating some space for Seattle to run the football effectively. There was a couple of runs in particular I wanted to kind of highlight. One was on 1st and 10, about halfway through the first quarter, 7 minutes, 34 seconds. For those of you who have access to film and want to watch this particular play, he had a beautiful double team block. He and Gray Zabel hit the defensive lineman initially, and then he jumps off of that defensive lineman, gets to the second level with the linebacker, seals him off. That goes for a 7-yard run for Kenneth Walker III off the left tackle spot. So again, a very impressive run there. And then later on, there was a toss play, this time to Ken Walker III again. This was 11 minutes, 43 seconds in third quarter, a 1st and 10, toss to the left, the same kind of a thing. It was a 7-yard run by K9. That was, again, very effective. Charles Cross being able to kind of get all the way outside, basically level up a linebacker at the second level, really showing off the athletic ability that led to him being, I believe it was the number 9 overall selection a few years back. So again, considering that Seattle paid for Abe Lucas at the right tackle position, I do think that Seattle is going to very much be wanting to bring Charles Cross back long term. And I think that the quality all-around play that he is showing, not only as a pass protector, but also as a run blocker, is the biggest reason. That and his durability and his young age still at this point is why the Seahawks would be wise to lock up Charles Cross long term.
We've talked about this already in recent weeks. We saw the big game that Cooper Kupp had a couple weeks ago against the Buccaneers. But I think he's been way better than what his stats indicate. Like he's not on pace to get a 1,000-yard season. He's on pace right now to get around 700 receiving yards. He just scored his first touchdown in the 6th game, so he hasn't been really a factor in the red zone. So some may be wondering, what are we getting for our money? We're paying $11 million per year. Like, I think he's playing beyond that. It hasn't just been, everyone's going to look at the failed outside runs and say, well, number 10 couldn't have been blocking very well. He had some really nice blocks. The Jags did a great job of pursuing the football and sending multiple defenders, and he was doing a lot of crack blocks, so he wasn't on the outside anyway on those sweep plays. But Cooper Kupp is one of the 5 highest-rated run-blocking receivers in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus, and the blocking matches up with it on film. Like, you see him get after it every single week. That's been a calling card for him since he came in the league. He has always taken pride in that. And even in the games where he's only getting 2 or 3 catches, like he had 2 catches this game, and they happened in a very quick couple minutes, but they were huge. The 29-yard connection where he broke a tackle and got some extra yards after the catch, that play set up his touchdown where he made a really nice route. The corner was all over him, but he had a really good stem that he was able to get just enough separation that Sam Darnold could deliver a perfect over-the-shoulder throw for an 11-yard touchdown. You're just seeing this entire offense. All the other receivers are blocking extremely hard because they see what number 10 does every single play. And I think he's also had an impact on the route running. JSN, I think, would tell you that Cooper Kupp coming in has just taken his game to another level. Being able to watch a guy like that on the field, Cooper Kupp is providing more than enough value for the $11 million per year you're getting. And I do think a game where he gets double-digit catches and finds the end zone once or twice is coming. I think there's going to be a game a team is going to really be stressed out by JSN, and they're going to forget that Cooper Kupp is still a really darn good football player. That kind of game, I think, is coming for him, maybe even on Monday Night Football against the Houston Texans. Okay, let's get to the defensive side of the football. Some thoughts coming out of this game or the first 6 weeks. What's something that jumps out to you?
Well, I think definitely Nicky Manwari. And, I feel bad because in yesterday's show, Corbin, I kind of mentioned the snafu between he and Shaq Griffin that led to a touchdown. I think that having watched that again, I do believe that it was Shaq Griffin who probably was most responsible for that.
Yeah,
play.
it was.
no safety help over the top. Both Eamon Warry and Shaq Griffin kind of both stopped and looked at the slot receiver, Parker Washington, who was in motion, and that just allowed Brian Thomas the free release, easy touchdown, Trevor Lawrence. But other than that, and he did have one missed open field tackle against Travis Hunter, number 2 overall pick. Travis Hunter's going to make some people look foolish. But other than that, I thought Nick Eamon Warry was terrific in this football game. He provided so much pop, so much physicality. I haven't seen a safety from the Seahawks provide that much physicality since the great Cam Chancellor. And that's, a name that people have bandied about ever since the Seattle made this selection. But at the same time, I think to actually see that type of physicality, there were times, Corbin, where he didn't just hit the ball carrier. He slammed him down to the turf with a kind of emphatic just violence that, again, I think kind of sends shockwaves throughout the league, because this is a rookie and a young rookie at that is just adding a whole different level of physicality to a defense that already is fast and physical. So the same kind of way that DeMarcus Lawrence kind of provides some of that tough guy at the point of attack, Nick Eamon Warry is providing that as well. He's also providing great versatility. Line up at the slot cornerback spot, line up as an off-ball linebacker, line up as a traditional safety. He was all over the field. There were so many plays that he made against screen passes, against wide receivers, again, when it's matched up one-on-one in coverage. That just, again, I am going to gush about what number 3 provide the Seahawks. It reminds me of about another number 3. He plays safety for the Los Angeles Chargers, Derwin James. Again, comparing him to Derwin James and Cam Chancellor, 2 of the best all-purpose strong safeties in the NFL, at least in my lifetime. Pretty heady stuff for a rookie here. The Seahawks, again, we talked about Byron Murphy II, just scratched the surface of his potential. Hell, Nick Eamon Warry hasn't even started to scratch yet, and he's already clawing his way up in terms of being named among some of the legends in the league.
Yeah, and for me on defense, I don't want to come across to, maybe this is going to come across as being greedy, because Uchenna Nwosu had a really good game on Sunday. DeMarcus Lawrence was a game wrecker on Sunday. Boye Mafe had a couple of pass rushes on all 22 that were really impressive. There were a couple of them where he made Walker Little look like he was playing peewee football. But he didn't do anything off of those. He didn't get quarterback hits. He didn't. I still think the edge rush position, in my opinion, there is still something that is missing there in terms of depth, or having another guy that can really, I don't know, even take over the game. But I think they have got to be active looking at what is out there. Derek Hall, maybe he comes back next week or two, but even if Derek Hall's back, I haven't seen enough from Boye Mafe this year. I feel like with Seattle's cap space and kind of the landscape of the league right now, Cincinnati still thinks they're in the division hunt, even though Pittsburgh is off to a fast start. Everybody else is terrible in that division, so maybe the Bengals can play their way back into wild card contention. But I'm still calling about Trey Hendrickson every single day to see if they're willing to do something there. I'm calling over to the New York Giants about Thibodeau. Their big win they had against the Eagles, maybe they're not selling anything right now, but I'm at least calling. And I'd call the New York Jets about Jermaine Johnson, a player that I know Mike Macdonald had a lot of interest in when he was in Baltimore. And Jermaine Johnson's looked healthy. I'd be calling about all 3 of those players. There's a couple other guys you could look at. I just think that is still the position on defense, and maybe another linebacker, though if Drake Thomas plays the way he did Sunday and he can package that up, maybe you're okay there. Those are the missing ingredients still for me on this defense. Real quick, my closing thought here on our Tell the Truth Tuesday, and kind of piggybacking off of your discussion earlier, because I thought Charles Cross played really well. With that being said, Klint Kubiak, this is my message for you. Enough with the darn toss plays to Zach Charbonnet, particularly going to the short side of the field. This has been a recurring horror movie for a run game guy this year, watching these plays. I feel horrible for Zach Charbonnet, because he is one of the absolute worst in the NFL in terms of having any blocking, and a lot of that skewed from these short side of the field toss plays where he is just getting ransacked by opposing defenders. You're playing right into him. When he was running up the gut on Sunday, he had some really nice punishing runs. Play to his strengths and occasionally mix in the toss play. Don't make the toss play something that is a big part of his repertoire. That is not his game, particularly the short side of the field. And you're putting your blockers at a disadvantage on the short side. So I had to get that off my chest. Stop with all these toss plays to Zach Charbonnet and start using him between the tackles and let him play the way he's supposed to play football.
Well, I think that if that does happen, then you're going to start to see Klint Kubiak's name being tossed about as a former or as a future NFL head coach. I think you're going to start to hear that kind of buzz if Seattle's defensive line continues to terrorize opponents. Adam Durde is going to get his name. I don't know that Jay Harbaugh gets the credit that he deserves, but Seattle specialists really are playing a special brand of football. Look, we've talked before about Derek Young and Torrey Horton. Torrey Horton, of course, has the longest punt return touchdown in Seahawks history. It's also the longest punt return in the NFL so far this season at 95 yards. Derek Young is currently leading the NFL in kick return yardage, or at least his average per game, average per attempt at 33.8 yards. And then when you have Jason Myers, who's just 11 of 14 on field goals, 19 of 19 on PATs. You got Michael Dixon, 48.2 yard net. That's not one of the best in the NFL until you take into consideration that his 9 punts inside the opponent's 20-yard line is kind of taking away from his numbers. But truly, Seattle's coverage units have been very good. Even with the long snapper issues, they've been very good. Again, Seattle specialists have played a critical role in their success so far this season. Hey, the special teams coach, Jay Harbaugh, deserves an awful lot of credit for that.
When we come back, we are going to shift our focus to Monday Night Football, the Houston Texans. A lot of changes on offense and defense for Houston. We'll be diving into that coming up next here on our Tuesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. The NFL season is now in week 7, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, such as how many touchdowns Sam Darnold will throw against the Texans on Monday Night Football, building a same-game parlay with multiple prop bets for week 7, or just jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more thrilling, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Welcome back to the Tuesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. He's Rob Rang. A special thanks to each and every one of the 12s out there. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. It's on to Monday Night Football. The Seahawks turning the page from a big win in Jacksonville and now get to face a Houston Texans squad that at least the first 3 or 4 games didn't look like a playoff contender. They got beat up pretty good in a couple of those games. And then they went out and just absolutely demolished, albeit without Lamar Jackson, the Baltimore Ravens, ran them off the field. Houston looked like a much different team in that game. And if you watch this Texans squad, they've invested so much, whether it's draft picks, free agency, they've invested so much in their defense the last couple of years. And they've had some big changes on offense. And in particular, they traded Laramie Tunsil, their left tackle. They traded him to the Commanders this offseason. Stephon Diggs, with an ACL injury, coming off an ACL, left to go to the Patriots in free agency. 2 huge losses on offense, and yet it seems like this group is starting to find some traction a little bit with Jaden Higgins, their second-round pick out of Iowa State, now being a bigger piece of the puzzle at the receiver position. They went out and got Christian Kirk in free agency after the Jags cut him as a cap casualty. So they've rearmed these skill positions, and that's without Tank Dell, who they're hoping to get back at some point later in the season. Will not be available in this game. But, Rob, this is a team that they've kind of been put a little bit of a between a rock and a hard place type thing in some regards, because this O-line has been one of the worst in the NFL, and then they traded their best offensive lineman. They bring in Laken Tomlinson after 1 season with the Seahawks. He's starting. They're starting a rookie in Ursery from Minnesota at left tackle, and he's had his rookie bump so far. The O-line has not played well, and they've added some skill position pieces, lost some key veterans, and yet there's still a belief that C.J. Stroud can be the guy that elevates and makes this team dangerous once they get everything rolling.
Yeah, it's an interesting club. I think a lot of times NFL teams will kind of adopt the personality of their head coach. And this is a defensive focused football. Again, very similar to D'Amico Ryans, their head coach, former star linebacker, of course. And so I do think that the Houston Texans defense remains the strength. But as you said, there's been so much turnover on the offensive side of the ball. I thought that the trade of Laramie Tunsil was an interesting one. He is so darn gifted at the left tackle position, but he has never been a guy that has really earned, the highest grades from scouts for work ethic and for attention to detail. And so again, I wonder if that's a little bit of D'Amico Ryans basically imprint on this club, saying we don't want guys that are 100% all in. Maybe the Seahawks did similar things here with some of the moves that they made during their offseason. The same kind of thing happened at the safety position. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is a really good football player, but at the same time, the Texans decided to cut bait on him. The Baltimore Ravens did the exact same thing by cutting bait with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson here just recently. So again, sometimes it's not just about the talent. It's about the teamwork and whether or not you are able to go all in truly to make your team better. I do think it's fascinating to kind of watch how this team has tried to recover from that loss of Laramie Tunsil. You mentioned Ariante Ursary, the former second-round pick that is now starting as the rookie at the left tackle position. Look, Ursary is a talented player, but at the same time, he is a rookie. Lumen Field can get very loud, can be very intimidating place for a rookie tackle. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if Seattle is able to kind of keep up the momentum that they created a week ago on the road in Jacksonville. They got 7 sacks a week ago. Can they do the same thing on Monday Night Football? And then do the Texans have the weapons around C.J. Stroud to allow him to be as successful? They have some talent. You and I were both very, very high on the Iowa State tandem of Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins. Nico Collins is an absolute superstar at the one wide receiver position, and they brought in Christian Kirk, so a good talented player there as well. But again, when you're talking about rookies, you're basically pushing your cards into the table, or all the chips into the table, so to speak, I guess, when it comes to rookies. And are they going to be able to make those kind of plays on that kind of a stage? It's going to be fascinating to see who winds up winning this football game for two talented, but teams that feel like they're going in opposite directions right now.
Yeah, and the Texans fans would say, well, look what we just did against Baltimore. And the problem is that the Ravens without Lamar Jackson, we've seen in this league, when you take away a star quarterback like that, it just suddenly makes a team irrelevant. It makes it difficult for them to win games. And that's no offense to the backups for Baltimore. They're trying. So still, a win is a win. We'll see where the Texans stack up. To me, this is a real statement opportunity for them to show that they still belong in that hunt in the AFC South, which suddenly is way better than I think anybody thought it was going to be, with the Colts at 5-1. We just played Jacksonville, seen what they're capable of doing. That is suddenly a division that is no longer just kind of de facto belonging to Houston as it has been the last few years. They're going to have to get going a little bit to get back in the race, and this is a game that they're going to feel they need. And from Seattle's perspective, you want to win at home. They're 1-2 again this year. They did have that big win against the Saints, but Monday Night Football, you don't want somebody coming in on your turf and exiting with a victory. So there's going to be some of that pressure there. Like, go prove yourself at home against another team that's expected to be a contender and find a way to get it done. So that's going to make this really exciting moving into this Monday night matchup against the Seattle Seahawks. When we come back tomorrow, we're going to be a little different week. We're going to actually shift our matchup episode to Friday because of Monday being the game and not Sunday. So we are going to have a matchup Friday coming your way. Tomorrow's episode, I'm going to be riding solo and going to be diving into some Week 7 report cards. Going to be diving into some awards as well for the Seahawks squad. Make sure that you listen in and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Go Hawks.